Welcome everyone for today's webinar. So I am Soham Waghela and I am the Global Business Head of PamGro. And I have with me Amit, who's the co-founder of PamGro, and Rahul, who's the VP Sales. So today we will be discussing on how Indian startups can build and scale global teams in 2026. Why are Indian startups hiring globally? So one of the key reasons why the startups want to hire global talent is firstly the niche and senior talent that they need. So sometimes you want talent beyond borders, right? So you might be limited by particular skills and you want to hire the right talent, which might be based out of any part of the world. Second is faster scaling without setting up entities. So with COVID, a lot of tech was developed around remote working. Right now you want to hire talent across the globe, but a lot of tech was developed and a lot of technology around EOR developed, where you now no longer want to set up entities and you can hire freelancers or EOR employees directly any part of the world. Thirdly, cost optimization and time zone coverage. So while you are targeting the customers globally now, right? So you want your teams to cover, it may be sales team or customer success, to cover all the time zones, and hence you want the team to sit in different part of the world, as well as you want to optimize your cost. And lastly, you want to expand globally as a company. So you want to increase your TAM. No longer you want to kind of have the market presence only in the country that you're working in. You want to expand the market. You want to expand your target segment just by entering newer markets, which might be better suitable for your products and services. So I'll bring you to some of the examples of the companies which expanded last year in 2025 without setting up local entities. There's few examples of companies like Razorpay, ChargeBee and Postman. So they built a GDM and they set up customer success and pre-sales teams remotely. And initially they started hiring 6 to 20 employees per region in order to expand globally. They use the EOR route instead of setting up the entities. Typically setting up entities might take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. But for them, it was like under 30 days they were able to grow. And this also helped them kind of cut their costs, because setting up entity might be a painful process of essentially hiring local legal and accounting firms, as well as buying a high insurance. So basically they saved a lot of cost while expanding globally within the very, very short time. When you're looking to hire global talent, there are different engagement models that you can use currently in the current times. First is the freelancer model. So here you identify the talent and you start engaging with the talent directly. When I say directly, you pay the money directly to their bank account. So this is the freelancer model. This generally works and is more suitable for like part-time gig workers, where you have a particular task, say graphic design or any of the sort of work that can be done by a single person in a stipulated period of time. It can be a one-time job. So then freelancer model becomes one of the most suitable one. The COR model or contractor on record model. So today in these times, a lot of people want to work on contract jobs. So they don't want to stick around to a company for a very long time. Rather, they prefer doing like multiple projects or projects that kind of have an end time. So these people also set up their own limited companies or one-person companies, and they invoice directly from their firm. So this model in which you engage with a person who has his own limited company is the COR model, the employee on record. So here you choose a company which acts as an employer on record for the candidate that you want to work with. This is the most compliant way to hire employee anywhere in the world. So essentially, to select the right model will depend on the kind of engagement that you have with that particular person, because freelancer would carry the maximum risk in order to hire that person, because the government might classify that person as your employee and then would tell that, okay, you need to pay the employer costs, you need to pay the taxes, which the candidate did not pay because you paid the money directly into their bank account and they did not pay the taxes, right? So in those cases, government can make you responsible for all the dues and might also put a huge fine on you. Similarly, contractor on record, while they might raise invoices directly from their own limited company, but then again the responsibility of being compliant with the local law still lies with you. right? So a lot of times it is riskier when you go with the freelancer model. The most compliant way that you can kind of have an engagement with a person is the employee on record. Here you identify a company who employs people for you, like PamGro, and then that company takes the entire responsibility of being compliant in that country. But where do you choose the engagement model depends on the kind of engagement that you can have. So it doesn't mean that you should not go with the freelancer model. It completely depends on the kind of engagement that you have with the candidate, and this engagement will be dependent on a different country will have different rules, which I'll show you. The first one is supervision, direction, and control. So here it is important to know that for you need to ask question to yourself, like, are you supervising candidate that you want to work with? When I say supervise, like, do you kind of help him with the day-to-day activities that he's doing? Are you directing him on what he needs to do and what he doesn't need to do? Are you controlling his working hours? Second is, like, do you offer like a fixed working hour policy? Like, does he have to clock 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week kind of format? So that would classify him as an employee. Third is, do you pay a monthly fixed amount to the candidate? So if it is like a monthly salary or a monthly paycheck, he would be classified as an employee by the government. The fourth one is the equipment and the email domain. So if you are providing the laptop to the candidate as well as providing your email domain, the country might be classifying that candidate as your employee. And lastly, the terms and exclusivity, the kind of contract that you have with the candidate. For instance, if you allow that candidate to work on multiple projects with multiple companies, then it is non-exclusive contract. So that would make him a freelancer. But if you ask him to work exclusively for you 40 hours a week, he'll definitely be classified as an employee, and that would carry the risk of government asking you to pay the dues. So why employer of record adoption is exploding in 2026? So we discussed the engagement models, but EOR is exploding because a lot of companies are now hiring employees across the globe without setting up entities. So they are able to hire the employees within days and not months. So this is essentially possible because of the EOR companies like PamGro. Now they do not have to set up any entity. So a typical entity setup time would take from 6 months to 12 months. But now there is no need to set up an entity. So they are able to expand globally in a jiffy. Thirdly, the compliance headache are taken care of by EOR companies like PamGro. So we will do all that is necessary to be compliant in that country. And every local labor law or anything to do with compliance is the burden that is taken care by the partner, which is a EOR vendor. So you don't need to worry about the compliance and you focus on your core competency. And lastly, the costs are very predictable. So when we engage with a client, we share an illustration which kind of has everything to do with the invoice value. So you exactly know how much you are going to shed out at a monthly level for hiring a particular resource, and it is completely transparent and the costs are very, very predictable. So we talked about how EOR can help you scale globally without having to set up entities. And here's why you should use PamGro, because PamGro has a presence globally, right? They can help hire you in more than 150 countries. We have cost optimized hiring structures. So we kind of share the illustrations with you with the exact amount that like PamGro charges to give you that solution. And that varies country by country depending on the kind of country that you want to expand into. Thirdly, of course, we support with all the three models, the freelancer model, the COR model, as well as the EOR model. So that will help you de-risk your strategies of global expansion while we help you manage the risk globally. And lastly, we have a single contract, single invoice structure as well. So while you have candidates or employees distributed across the globe, every month we can raise a consolidated invoice to you so that you pay just once while we make multiple payments to multiple employees in different countries for you. Also, like I said earlier, the local compliance expertise lies with the company. So PamGro has in-house compliance team. So we have the teams who manage the global compliance in-house. That gives us robust nature of compliance in terms of ensuring that there is 100% compliant way of operations. We do have labor leasing licenses everywhere, and our internal team ensures that we are 100% compliant with the work that we do. Now we learned about like PamGro and how the EOR works and how we at PamGro support you with their global expansion endeavors. I have with me Amit from the US office. So he sits out of New Jersey. He's the co-founder of PamGro. He's an entrepreneur, investor, and a mentor. He's an alumnus of IIT Delhi and IIM Calcutta. He is an active member of leading entrepreneur committees, and he's mentored and coached 8 early stage startups to $1 million plus revenues. He's an angel investor and is backing high potential founders. So, welcome Amit. I think you have been in the US market for very long, and we would like to learn from you how Indian startups can scale to US. So, welcome aboard, Amit. Thank you for coming to the webinar. So, Amit, we have a few questions for you. The first question is, what are the challenges that startups face while expanding to the US market?
So I can start with our personal experience. So I founded the first company here in the US around 14 years ago. We are in India, we always talk about ease of business, that, in Western countries, there is a remarkable amount of ease of business. But there are also other set of challenges which are there. If you ask me, the company registration happened in a day. Okay, but for us to decide which state to get registered in was almost like a 2-3 month exercise, talking to many people, because we had options of 50 options here in the US of which is the state you wanted to get incorporated in. And sometimes having more choice is actually worse than having little choice. US is not one country, it is a collection of 50 states. And each state actually works like a different country altogether. So, the challenge that is there is, even after the registration, the next step which you have is hiring the first employee. The compliances that you have to have the moment you hire the first employee also can get fairly intimidating at times. You need to have good consultants on your side, which is a lawyer, an accountant, etc., etc. Fortunately for us, and largely, the way I have seen most Indian startups actually who are coming to the US typically rely on friends and family to navigate through it. And sometimes I feel that itself becomes very challenging, because there is, if you don't have professional expertise there, that becomes a little bit of a challenge. So having said that, the moment you hire the first employee, the challenges in terms of compliance with local workmen compensation laws, other sets of, compliances that you have to take care of. Most employees expect the employer to provide healthcare in this country. So it is navigable, it is easy to do business, but sometimes you need a lot of helping hand to do it.
Sure, Amit. That was, of course, looks like very challenging, basically hiring people in the US. So, second question I had is, like, if I am a startup and if I currently am looking to hire my first 2 employees, how should I go about it with the challenges at hand?
So there are 2 or 3 options, some of which you actually outlined in your presentation earlier, right? You can obviously hire here in the local market. One of the reasons why you're here. You can always have people immigrate from other countries. Largely, we are talking about India. So a lot of companies start with having the first couple of employees immigrate through India. And the third set is you can hire local contractors which are there. I can quickly go through some of the challenges that are there. So if you go through immigration, the political environment which is developing here, and at the very least, it is getting tougher and tougher to have people immigrate into this country. That is, without doubt, that has happened. Okay, it is still possible, but remember, most startups hire salespeople in this. So, and the challenges that I've seen, while I work with many startups or, talk to many entrepreneurs, is if you're getting salespeople from India, sometimes they understand the sales process, they understand the product, but they don't understand it. The other option is you hire locally. If you hire locally, you need to be compliant with the state in which you hire the employee. Pre-COVID, typically you would open office in one state and you would have all your employees in that state. Now most people are remote and you need to comply with the law in which your employee resides. So even if you hire 2 employees, they could be in 2 different states. It's almost like being compliant with 2 state laws, which is double the complication. The third is you hire contractors, which is easy. There are low barriers to entry, there are low barriers to exit, but the compliance of it is becoming significantly tougher, and more states are becoming tougher and tougher. We could talk about multiple cases which have been there where the administrations have come down very heavily on hiring.
Right. So, Amit, since you have been founder of multiple companies and, of course, the founder of one of the leading staffing firms, the next question I have is have you hired freelancers yourself, and what are the risks that you talk about?
Have I hired? Yes. Do I like hiring? No. The burden of proving classification lies on the company that is hiring the freelancers. You talked about earlier in your presentation about some of the challenges and some of the things that you have to be careful about. There have been multiple cases which have been there. I don't know, if you Google very quickly Pocket FM case, there was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. In California, there was a lawsuit where the government was seeking that all Uber drivers should be Uber employees. So there have been multiple instances of where the administration has come down very heavily on classification. My 2 cents advice to any entrepreneur is be careful. Okay, take professional advice. Always have a professional by your side. That is probably the best way to go about it.
Or alternately, we can always have an EOR partner to be the most compliant.
That always works.
So thanks a lot, Amit. This was really, really insightful, and I think people would learn from this about expanding to the US market. So for all the people out there, now I would like to welcome and introduce Mr. Rahul Malhotra. He's the VP Sales and Partnership for PamGro. He heads the global sales for us. He's based out of the London office, and he has 22 plus years of experience in HR tech, staffing, SaaS, workforce solution. He has worked in leadership positions across multiple high growth startups, and he's extensive experience in UK and Europe, and he has scaled operations to support 8,000 plus contractors and clients worldwide. And I don't see any person better than Rahul in my network at least, who knows the Europe market so much better to help startups grow there. So welcome, Rahul. Thanks for coming up on this webinar.
Thank you very much, Soham. It is a pleasure being here. And, I think the last 20-22 minutes have been a masterclass, not only in how EOR companies help, but also I'm sure a lot of people have gained a lot of knowledge on the US market from your conversation with Amit. So thank you for having me.
Sure, Rahul. And now we want to understand a bit of the Europe market. The first question that I have for you is, what are the challenges that startups face while expanding to the Europe market?
Very pertinent question, Soham, considering what Amit was also talking about, the current political scenario in the US. So therefore, a lot of companies, and especially Indian companies today, are looking at Europe as their market of interest, right? And while Europe gives the promise of single entry into 27 countries, it also equally gives you the challenges of 27 countries into one problem. Right. So therefore, for anybody wanting to enter Europe, it is an extremely slow process, right? You have to set up an entity. Entity setups in Europe, like Amit was mentioning, the company setup happened in a day. But in Europe, it can take anywhere between 6 months to 12 months, depending on which country you decide to enter it. Also, Europe is probably the most complicated continent in the world when it comes to labor laws, right? So 27 countries, 27 separate labor laws, different employment contracts. You have to worry about how termination notices. You have to worry about statutory benefits. So there is a hell lot of compliance that any organization has to navigate through, which becomes a nightmare. Setup costs. Now, Europe also is considered to be one of the most expensive continents, and therefore expenses are not only in living, but when you set up a company. In order to set up a company, you have to spend a lot of money. So therefore, the setup costs are extremely high. And a lot of startups, the reason why they're called startups is because they are making their money count for them. Now, you don't want to be wasting that money in setting up a company, right? And finally, an assumption is that, okay, I've run a company, I know how to hire people. That may not be true. Europe is very difficult from a hiring perspective because unlike most other countries, Europe has collective bargaining agreements in place. Indian companies necessarily may not have an idea of the kind of salaries that exist in the local market. So these are some of the challenges that Indian startups typically come across when they're trying to set up in Europe.
That was really challenging, Rahul. Sounds very, very challenging. So, what is the solution that you're proposing here?
So EOR is the solution. An employer of record is the perfect solution for any company that is wanting to enter the European market. Why I say that is because the benefit that an EOR company brings is that the EOR company becomes your local legal employer. So any company that is wanting to enter any other market, let's say it's any country in Europe, their main focus should be that I need to just focus on running my business. Right. I need to hire salespeople and get them to start operating in the best possible way. And while they're thinking of that problem, the EOR company assumes local responsibilities and essentially rolls out employment contracts, gets the onboarding sorted out, manages the employment risks, statutory deductions. So the solution is go the EOR route. Let us take the headache away of managing your people from a statutory perspective. The company just manages their own staff from a work perspective. Quick, fast, and efficient way to enter Europe.
Sure, Rahul. While we understood that EOR might be the right solution, can you take us through one example so that we can have a deep dive into how it works?
So considering Amit's here on the call as well, and he represents the US, and while we're talking of Indian startups, I'll give you a fairly interesting example from the US. So there was a client of mine, a US company, over 400 people in the SaaS industry. I was chasing for a long time. Why I was chasing them was because I knew they wanted to set up operations in Europe. They had a very, very large customer base that they had developed in Europe. And the challenge was that they were managing this customer base by flying their staff from US into Europe almost every week. Sales guys were flying in, customer support guys were flying in, technical engineers were flying in. So obviously the costs were spiraling out of control. And while I was actually pitching them my EOR solution, they said, no, Rahul, you're smart enough. You're over 400 people. We'll set up our own entities in Europe. Right. 3 months down the line, having tried everything, they got a case slapped against them for misclassification. And they came back to us. So they came back to us because they realized that while it is easy to think that entering Europe is simple, they could not manage the risks that Europe entailed. They faced challenges in setting up a company. They faced challenges in rolling out the kind of contract that they should. You covered the 3 types of employments, right? Agent on record, contractor, as well as employee on record. They did not know how to manage all of that. So they faced tremendous amount of challenges, and then they came to us. And happy to say that we sorted out their problems very, very fast.
Sure, Rahul. So while EOR sounds the right solution from your words, what were the typical implementation timelines with EOR for that particular client?
So typically, the first week essentially went in understanding their requirements. Right. So while they already knew the markets they wanted to get into, we wanted to understand the kind of people they wanted to recruit. Because we don't believe only in selling, but what we also do is we believe in advising our people. So we follow a consultative approach. So typically went in understanding requirements. Once we understood requirements and I identified the countries they wanted to enter into, we follow a concept wherein we share a country compliance report with a client, which is an explanatory report which gives them an idea of the kind of compliances that entail in the country they want to enter. And we signed the master services agreement. So the first week typically went in all these administrative formalities. The second week was very, very simple sailing because the employees were identified. So all we had to do in the second week was we rolled out the offer letters and ensured the employees were on board. Week 3, the company started business as usual. Right? They were managing their employees that were meeting their clients in that country. They did not have to worry about anything about contracts, statutory benefits, compliance risks, nothing at all. So I'm proud to say that PamGro was able to solve their problem out within 3 weeks. Results were beautiful, and I love this particular slide because it actually shows you the kind of value a good EOR company can offer you. So they launched 3 European markets in less than a month. I told you about the 3-week timeline. I can roughly say that they saved about £250,000 in legal and setup costs. We gave them access to high quality talent, absolutely removed all compliance risks, and they scaled to 14 people in 1 year, which is something that they could never have done. So therefore, the results and impact were so strong and that they are actually using us to enter another continent at this point in time. The point is, any company choosing to enter a new country, EOR is the way forward. So
Wow, Rahul. So that was really, really insightful. So I'll just like put across the key takeaways from what we learned from you. So first is the speed of market. So while we understood that, you brought down the timelines from like 6 to 12 down to 3 weeks. Second, the compliance confidence that the client gained, because earlier while they tried their own route, it was very, very risky. They understood that EOR might be the right way, and then EOR actually became their easy way to manage the compliance. And of course, it was cost efficiency because it was effective. You said they saved more than 250k pound in coming through PamGro. The last is the scalable international growth. So like you said, they entered 3 countries at a time, and now they're kind of scaling to multiple continents via PamGro. So these 4 things become the key takeaways from, I think, the case study that we just saw. So anyone who's looking to expand to Europe, the EOR turns a complex challenge into a strategic advantage. So thanks a lot, Rahul, for your insight. It was very, very nice to learn about the Europe market.